Hey everyone, Dan Saavedra here from MergeYourData, and you probably are at this video because I said data is useless, and you might be a data person and offended and think I'm wrong, and so we're going to dive into why data is useless without these two other things paired with it. And so we are on day 33 of 90 of the YouTube sprint on signal analytics, and as someone who used to be a data analyst at heart with my entire being, it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and it's a conclusion I've come to after thinking about things from a different perspective. If you use data, you might be wondering sometimes, what's the point of all this? People look at dashboards or you produce dashboards, and then people don't use it, or it just seems like it really doesn't hit like it's supposed to. And there's a specific reason for that we've stumbled across here after working with over 70 clients specifically on marketing and sales data. We ended up describing and understanding something that's been around for a while, but stumbled across the term called signal analytics. And signal analytics opened up a whole world of understanding, and it really fit all the pieces in place. So we're going to get into that here, but first we're going to go into some math, which is pretty scary for a lot of people here. And data is like math, and that's why we're bringing this up. And we're going to actually go back to something called kinematics. So I was a mechanical engineer in college, and this is something that I don't remember very well, to be honest, but it's very relevant. It's a good metaphor, so we're going to use it here. So data is like math because, one, a point without a reference is unusable, at least for simple kinematics. If you have a dot somewhere, but you don't have a reference point, a zero axis to reference it, then you can't understand where it's at or anything about it. And then two would be a point with a reference, and that equals position. So if you do have an X and Y axis or an X, Y, and Z axis, you'll be able to understand where that point is at in space. And so now we have some useful information, right? And so one is how a lot of people end up using data. They just have a piece of information, but it's not in reference to anything. It doesn't have any anchoring point. And so they just have a piece of information. You can't really do much with that because it's not in the context of what's going on around them. And then two is where some people get to, which is they might have a reference, either a point in time, or they'll cross-reference this data point with another data point. If we're talking about demographics, they might see an age, and then they might take that age and compare it with where they're at in the customer journey, right? They'll cross-reference 2 points. Position is a little more useful, but it doesn't really tell you what's going on. Three is a point with a reference, direction, and movement, and this would be velocity. And so if you think about when it's useful to gather information about something out in the real world, you're walking down the street, you don't care where a car is at a point in time if you're crossing the street. You care where they're at and how fast they're moving and in what direction. And this is velocity. Now, this is information that's actually useful. Telling me that a car is at this point at a specific time is useful to a degree, but I'm always going to ask that next question if I'm crossing the street. How fast is it going? I'm not going to walk out into the middle of the road if the car is moving 150 miles per hour and it is 15 feet away. If a car is stopped, then I'll cross the road, right? And so this is where point three is. It's like math. We're at the velocity derivative. And then we get down to the fourth one, which is a point with a reference and change in direction plus motion equals acceleration. If I'm crossing the road and a car is coming at me fast, what I care about is it slowing down enough to not hit me? Can I keep crossing the road? If it's not, then I'm going to stop. And so this is even more information that helps me live my life. And so data is like this. When we get down to the velocity and acceleration stages, we're talking about measuring different moving parts of a business, how revenue is changing, how people are moving through pipelines, and then how that connects to all these other data points that we have. And so when we put together all these data points, we have an actual useful picture of what's going on, right? And so like what I talked about here, most people are at 1, some people get to 2, and very few get to 3 or 4. You might be at 2 with an analytics team that doesn't have a direction. Someone who says they're data-driven, but in reality, they just want pretty charts. Pretty charts can get you some information. It might get you to point two, let you know where you're at, but it's not going to do a great job with velocity or acceleration. And so let's get into this little diagram here. At the top, you see data plus action equals result. And this is the main formula that's needed in order to determine what you should do, what you should expect to get out of the data points, right? And so if we add the data with an action, we should get a result. And then on the flip side of this equation, we have data plus the result equals the action. And so if we flip the equation like we did here, and you're looking at data plus a result, your revenue, cross-referenced with different data points, a lot of people would call this cohort analysis. That's one way to do it, right? But this is signals, right? This is what you're trying to get to. You're trying to understand how data is cross-referenced and what the result is, and then the action that is involved in those three components. And so we can take data, we can look at the results of those data points cross-referenced, and then that's how we can determine our action. We can see what's going on, we can see the outcome of it, and then we can determine the action that we should take going forward. And then we can go back here and measure the results. So things change over time. And so you'll have data plus your action, and then you'll keep measuring your results. And then you'll go back to the drawing board. And it's just a constant loop. And so data plus action plus result equals signal. And this is the signal analytics. This is the stuff that we do with all of our clients and how we drive the revenue results that we do. And it's because we combine all of these together to define our signals. Signals are things that have the highest velocity and highest acceleration in a business context. Business is a living thing. It's a moving thing. And so if we can determine which data points are cross-referenced with which actions and produce which results, we can understand how and what we should do and who we should talk to and what messages that we should convey. All three of these equal a signal, top and bottom, positive and negative. You have the biggest results with specific data points and actions. That's a signal. And that's how we get to that final piece. And that's what's missing in data. And so this is what signals lead to. If you're just doing data analytics and just creating graphs, making measurements, it could be useful to a degree, but it's not going to be the things that truly move the needle. You're really looking for the signal amongst the noise in data, and that's your sole purpose. Data for the sake of data, just aggregated, isn't useful. Data that's aggregated and drilled into so that you can determine what data points were referenced with which actions and led to which results, that's what's useful. And so signals leads to these types of results here. This is the number of customers in a CRM of a client that we work with. We deployed our solution, March 2024, our services. And then you can see here that immediately customers increased by a significant margin. July to July here, 50% increase in customers year over year. And that's what signals can do. When you understand data in this way, you can change the landscape of your business. This is literally just understanding how people are moving through the funnel, making sure that they're moving through the funnel correctly like we talked about in previous videos, and then just capitalizing on that by giving them messages at the correct time. And so, I had a couple more things down here actually. Let me go back. This is the second example, client screenshot, where we deployed Signal Analytics. On the left-hand side, you have the number of deals. That increased a little bit once we deployed Signals and Signal Analytics. And then you see here that the real results come later on. So we deployed Signal Analytics, about a quarter passes, and then the revenue starts climbing rapidly. And this is because they're getting a better understanding of their customer. They're closing deals more efficiently because you can see here that the total number of deals didn't spike that much. It actually returned to baseline from before we started. And so they're closing more, they're retaining customers better, and that's what data can do for you if you use it in the concepts that we just discussed before. And so that's it for this video. Try to keep it under 10 minutes. Might get close here. Take one action. Share this video with someone who likes data. It's a fresh perspective. I've been working in data for 12 years. I've gone from the analyst level up to the data architect level to a consultant. And I've always been asking, well, what does this actually mean? What are these dashboards really used for? When are they actually giving us wins? And so this formula of breaking it down into data plus action equals result, and then data plus action plus results equals signal, and then looking at the signals has been the best way to achieve impactful results with data. So next video, we'll go over something different. It'll be a surprise. Subscribe on YouTube. Get a free signal constructor tool that we built. If you subscribe to the link in the description, got great feedback on it, so you might enjoy it yourself.